What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Credit Plug channel where we talk about how to build credit, how to establish relationships with banks and financial institutions, and most importantly, how to get you access to high limit credit funding. If that's something you like to listen to, then we definitely welcome you to subscribe. Otherwise, you can support our channel if you just like, share, or comment right down below. It helps our content get out to a much wider audience, and we greatly appreciate the support. Also, as a reminder, we will be hosting our Credit to Cash Flow Zoom webinar on July 3rd from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's a link in the description for you to enroll. If you can't attend live, there will be a recording that we'll make available to all program participants. So if you're interested, go check that out. So for today's video, I wanted to go over a particular topic, and I've kind of witnessed this with working with a lot of different people, and this is more, I guess, relatable to people who are somewhat new to credit or starting out from scratch building their credit. Now, I think sometimes there's just like a misalignment with expectations on how to get to high limits and when you would really expect to get high limits. Now, there are exceptions to kind of starting out with high limits. Everyone's well aware of Navy Federal, who give out, under normal circumstances, give out relatively higher limits than what you would get at like a major bank or something like that, especially if you don't have the history or the data points, or you just have a really thin profile. Normally, banks want to see a track record of handling certain debt loads before they start to trust you more with higher and higher limits. So, they want to see bank issued primary accounts over a certain period of time. And then after a certain period of time, and this is going to vary from bank to bank, but then they'll start to increase you on your existing lines, or when you apply for a new line, they'll give you higher limits. The way I like to describe it is that banks like to see other banks lend money to you before they feel comfortable. And this is another reason why when you have different institutions like grade A major banks, let's say like Chase, American Express, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, when you have those types of banks on your credit profile, it makes things a little bit easier when you go to maybe medium-sized banks or even credit unions, because they see, okay, these grade A banks gave you funding, you've paid them back responsible, so then, by default, you should be good enough to get funding from them. But at the same time, when you have a thin profile, you kind of have to work your way through the ranks, right? You're not just, at least from my knowledge, if there's anyone out here who just started getting $20,000, $30,000 limits as their first accounts, definitely let me know in the comment section down below, because I would be very, very interested in those data points. But for the most part, you're going to have to kind of work your way through the different, limits, right? So if you're new to credit, you can expect, limits anywhere starting out from like 300 to like 1500, right? And then you kind of work your way up. At least with me, I really start off with like, the 500 and 1000, then 1500, then 2500 to 3000, 5,000, 7, 8,000. Then once you get over 10,000, then it makes things a little bit more easier. Once you have some history under your belt with limits, over 10,000. But for the most part, it's going to take some time, and I think, being, I guess, dissatisfied or disappointed with a lower limit, especially if you're new to credit, you just have to understand that you're really just getting your foot in the door, and you're building a foundation for you to build data points and then, grow from there. So I always like to say you got to crawl before you can fly. So, you don't just hatch out the egg. A bird doesn't just hatch out the egg and start flying. At least, from my understanding, right? They got to learn how to crawl and walk, and then they start flying. No difference with the credit building process. It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. So if you do get a low limit, or what you consider a low limit, don't be disappointed if you didn't get, $20,000 off your first approval or anything like that. It really doesn't work that way. You really have to, go through the different phases and work your way up to that. Because remember, credit limits are generally going to be a reflection of your existing limits. So you need to demonstrate your ability to handle certain debt loads before other banks will feel comfortable with giving you a comparable limit or higher limit. So just keep that in mind and look at it more so, like I said, as an opportunity to establish a relationship as well as grow from within. So you can grow your limits even if it starts off with a small limit. I've grown like a $300 limit into like a $10,000 limit. So you can it's definitely possible. You just need to establish that track record, and that unfortunately is just something that you can't fast forward. It takes time to build a relationship, so just keep that in mind. With that being said, once you get to a certain point, you should have, I guess, minimum expectations on what limit that you're willing to accept to take on for a particular inquiry. Now, I know people who, they don't, if they're not getting at least 20,000 or greater, then they're not going to want to pursue that particular account. So there are, credit cards with like minimum limits and things like that. So, I know people who, they might just set a high expectation, and, that's going to vary from person to person. Me personally, I look at credit a little bit differently, not always in terms of, getting it because I want a certain limit to necessarily spend, but even if it's just a matter of building a relationship with a new institution, I would be more willing to maybe perhaps accept a lower limit and grow that. But if I were to throw out an amount, I would say the least I would accept for an inquiry would probably be like $3,000. Anything less than that, I think there's a bigger opportunity cost from taking on that inquiry. But that would probably be like the least that I would, I wouldn't want to accept anything less than $3,000. Now, I know other people have different expectations, and I'm curious to know, and let me know in the comment section right down below, what's the minimum credit limit that you would accept for taking on a hard inquiry? Very, very curious to know what that is. I know everyone would have kind of a different, threshold that they're willing to accept. And I know like 3,000 is like kind of low, but like, I look at it a little bit different because there are other ways I can monetize that account and grow that data. Because at the end of the day, I'm looking more for the value of the data versus just having that limit to spend per se. But let me know in the comment section down below, what's the minimum limit that you're willing to accept for an inquiry? So I'm curious to know what everyone says. But anyways, that's all I really wanted to share for this video. It's a process. You got to crawl before you can fly. Don't be disappointed if you are new to credit and you get a $1,000 limit and you didn't get a $20,000 limit like you wanted. Just remember, you have to get through the different phases before other things start to open up. So I just wanted to share that. And until next time, you guys take it easy. And as a reminder, if you want to check out the Credit to Cash Flow webinar, there's a link in the description for you to register. Till next time, I'll take it easy, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.